Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung, there's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from exhaustion, from carrying too many unspoken things for too long. Maybe you know that silence, the one that sits in your chest even when the world around you is loud. You laugh when you're supposed to. You nod when people talk. You keep moving. But inside, there's this quiet ache that never really goes away. The kind that whispers, something's missing, even when life looks okay from the outside. Carl Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And maybe that's the real reason so many of us stay half asleep in our own lives. Because to face ourselves, the parts we hide, the memories we bury, the versions of us that once begged to be seen, feels like standing naked in front of the truth. But what if that truth isn't here to punish us? What if it's the one thing that could finally set us free? Jung believed that healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. He said that what we call the shadow, the pieces of ourselves we try to forget, are not evil. They are just exiled parts of our soul waiting for love. Think about that. The anger you suppress, the jealousy you feel ashamed of, the sadness you've learned to disguise with a smile. They're not your enemies. They're your messengers. They carry the lost languages of your heart. And maybe this is where your journey begins, not in learning more, but in remembering what you've always known. Beneath your roles, your achievements, your survival strategies, there is still a self that remembers softness. The child who once believed in magic before the world taught them fear. The soul that once trusted love before it became conditional. Jung called this the self, the center that never dies, no matter how much we've forgotten it. In the next few moments, I want to take you somewhere deep, a place where ancient wisdom meets your modern pain. Because what Jung uncovered was not just psychology, it was a mirror for the modern soul. A reminder that your darkness isn't your curse, it's your calling. If you've ever wondered why you repeat the same patterns in love, why you attract people who reflect your deepest wounds, or why you feel disconnected from meaning, stay here. Don't rush. Let's breathe together for a moment. Because this right now might be the moment your healing begins, not with effort, not with force, but with awareness, with gentleness, with the courage to finally meet the parts of you you've avoided for too long. And if you find something in these words that touches you, that feels like truth, stay with it. Let it unfold inside you. You might want to subscribe or share this with someone who needs to hear it too. Not because it helps me, but because maybe it helps them remember that they're not alone in this either. There's a story that lives inside almost everyone, the story of the one who had to become strong too soon. Maybe it started in childhood, when love meant earning approval, not simply being. Maybe it began when you realized that being honest about your pain made people uncomfortable, so you learned to hide it. You smiled instead. You became what others needed: the peacemaker, the achiever, the caretaker, the one who doesn't ask for much. But deep down, something inside you knew, this isn't who I really am. Carl Jung spoke about this moment, the fracture between who we are and who we pretend to be. He called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive. It isn't fake, it's just incomplete. It's the version of you that learned how to navigate a world that didn't know how to hold your truth. But the problem is, when we live too long behind that mask, we forget there was ever anything beneath it. We start to mistake performance for personality, and we wonder why we feel so empty, even when everything looks fine. You see, the soul doesn't care about how good you are at pretending. It craves realness. It aches for integration, to be seen in the raw light of truth, even if that truth trembles. Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that. How many times have you said, why does this always happen to me? Maybe it's not fate at all. Maybe it's your unconscious, your forgotten stories trying to come home. You attract what mirrors your unhealed self. You are drawn to people who carry the same energy as your earliest wounds, not because you're broken, but because your soul is trying to finish the story, to finally find a different ending. That's why the same kind of relationship keeps repeating, why the same emotion returns when you thought you were past it. It's not punishment, it's invitation. Every pain that revisits you is your psyche's way of saying, please, don't abandon me again, not this time. And this is where healing begins, not in cutting off the past, but in listening to it, in realizing that what you suppress will never die. It will only grow quieter until you're ready to hear it. The modern world teaches us to move on, to let go. But the soul doesn't work like that. It doesn't want you to erase. It wants you to remember, but differently. To revisit your wounds, not as a victim, but as a witness. Take a breath here. Maybe the person who hurt you wasn't capable of love. Maybe they didn't know how to see you. Maybe they were carrying their own shadows. But here's what Jung would remind you. Even in that pain, there was something sacred. Because it woke you up. It made you search for depth in a shallow world. It made you ache for truth. And that ache, that longing, is not weakness. It's your compass. It's pointing you home. So when the nights feel heavy, when you find yourself replaying conversations or wondering if you were ever enough pause, you are not broken. You are remembering. You are meeting your shadow, and your shadow is not the enemy. It's the part of you that has been waiting patiently for you to come back. When Jung spoke about the shadow, he didn't mean something dark and evil lurking in you. He meant the parts of yourself that you had to hide to be loved. The emotions that once made someone pull away, the dreams that felt too big, the anger you were told was too much, the tears you were told to swallow. They didn't disappear, they just went underground. And now, when someone says something that stings a little too deeply, or when rejection feels unbearable, that's your shadow knocking on the door. It's not asking to be destroyed, it's asking to be seen. You see, we all build walls to protect ourselves, but those same walls keep the light from coming in. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's your doorway. Every piece of you that you've exiled holds a key to freedom, to creativity, to intimacy, to life. Jung once wrote that the gold is in the darkness. What he meant is that the very thing you're running from is the thing you need most. So imagine this. You sit quietly one night, alone, with your phone face down, no music, no distractions. And suddenly, you feel something rise, that familiar ache, that old sadness, that loneliness you thought you'd outgrown. The instinct is to escape, to scroll, to text someone, to drown it out. But what if just for tonight you didn't? What if you stayed? Because that ache isn't your punishment. It's your soul reminding you that you're alive, that you still feel, that you haven't gone completely numb. There's beauty in that. There's power in that. Jung would tell you, the task is not to fix your darkness, but to hold it tenderly, patiently, until it transforms. That's what alchemy really is, turning pain into wisdom, shame into compassion, fear into truth. You see, every human you admire, every soul who radiates light has walked through their own shadows. They didn't skip the darkness, they befriended it. They sat with their pain until it spoke. And when it did, it told them the same secret it will tell you. You were never broken. You were just unfinished. But the modern world doesn't know how to sit still long enough to hear that truth. We medicate, we distract, we perform happiness, and then we wonder why our souls are tired. Jung saw this coming long before our screens began to glow. He said modern man suffers from a loss of meaning. We've gained knowledge, but lost depth. We've built lives that look full but feel empty. And maybe that's why his band Wisdom feels more alive now than ever, because it dares to speak to the soul, not the ego. It whispers what the world forgot. That you are not your mask. You are not your failures. You are not the versions of you that someone else couldn't love. You are the witness behind it all, the quiet observer who has been there since the beginning, watching your story unfold, waiting for you to come home. So when you find yourself scrolling late at night, looking for something that makes the emptiness stop, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really searching for? Because often, it's not entertainment. It's not validation. It's connection to something real, something sacred, something that feels like home. And maybe that home isn't out there. Maybe it's been waiting inside you quietly all along. Sometimes healing doesn't look beautiful. It looks like crying in the shower, answering texts slower, saying no when you used to say yes. It looks like being misunderstood by people who liked the version of you that stayed quiet. But that's the thing about becoming whole. You can't do it without disappointing someone. Jung understood this deeply. He said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who the world expects you to be. And yet, that's terrifying, isn't it? Because who are you without your roles? Without the mask of the strong one or the one who's okay? When you finally take that mask off, you don't find a perfect person underneath. You find the raw, trembling truth. You find the self that still doubts, still aches, still wonders if it's worthy of love. And that's where real transformation begins. You start to see that healing isn't becoming someone new. It's remembering someone ancient, the version of you that existed before fear took over. Jung called this process individuation. But really, it's just the journey home. It's the moment you stop chasing approval and start following authenticity. It's the quiet revolution that happens when you decide that peace is more important than perfection. The soul doesn't rush. It doesn't care about timelines or milestones. It heals in silence, in slow moments. In the nights you finally stop pretending you're fine. And though it may not look like progress, it is. Because every tear, every honest word, every time you choose truth over image, that's the shadow turning into light. Think about this. Every relationship, every heartbreak, every loss, they weren't random. They were mirrors, reflecting back to you the parts of yourself that you needed to meet. The person who abandoned you showed you where you abandoned yourself. The one who didn't choose you revealed the part of you that still feels unworthy. Pain is never wasted when you let it teach you. That's the kind of wisdom the world doesn't always want you to hear because it can't be packaged, can't be sold. But Jung knew that the only real healing is the kind that comes from facing yourself. Not from running, not from numbing, not from pretending, but from meeting your soul in the dark and saying, I see you, I'm staying. And here's the paradox. The more you face your darkness, the more light you begin to carry. Not the blinding light of forced positivity, but the soft, steady glow of truth. The kind of light that doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. So if you've been feeling lost lately, uncertain, or disconnected, maybe you're not falling apart. Maybe you're being stripped down to what's real. Maybe your soul is asking you to stop searching for meaning out there and start finding it in here, in your own depth, your own silence, your own shadow. Take a deep breath. Feel that? That's life reminding you you're still here, still growing, still becoming. And when the world feels too much, when the noise gets loud, remember this. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. There's a certain moment in life, quiet, subtle, almost imperceptible, when you realize that the healing you've been chasing isn't a destination. It's a rhythm. A conversation between your wounds and your wisdom. It's the slow unlearning of everything you thought love meant. Maybe you used to believe love was sacrifice giving until you disappeared. Maybe you thought love was control, holding on so tightly that you couldn't breathe. Maybe you thought love was pain, something that had to hurt to feel real. But Jung would gently whisper, what if love is none of those things? What if love is simply truth? The kind that doesn't demand that you become smaller to be accepted. The kind that lets you be fully seen, shadow and all. Most of us grew up mistaking survival for love. We learned to please, to perform, to adjust, just to stay safe. And now, as adults, we call that connection. But the soul knows the difference. The body knows when it's shrinking. You can feel it, that tightening in your chest, that quiet exhaustion after giving too much. It's not because you're weak. It's because you've been trying to earn something that was meant to be freely given. Jung said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That means love, real love, isn't found in fantasy. It's found in honesty. It's found in those moments when you finally tell yourself the truth. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of chasing. I'm ready to meet myself. And when that moment comes, something in you shifts. You stop running toward people who trigger your unworthiness. You stop confusing chemistry with destiny. You start to see that sometimes walking away isn't giving up, it's growing up. It's refusing to repeat a pattern that was never yours to carry. But make no mistake, awakening isn't gentle. It strips you. It burns through illusion. It makes you stand in the ashes of your old life and ask, who am I now? And that's where the soul begins to whisper, not as an answer, but as a remembering. You remember that you were never meant to be a mirror for other people's projections. You were meant to be a window open, clear, honest. You were never meant to shrink for love. You were meant to expand through it. And yes, it hurts. Growth always does. Jung once said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The seed must break before it becomes the tree. The heart must crack before it can truly open. So if your life feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's actually falling into place. Maybe the universe is dismantling everything false so that what's true can finally emerge. Breathe here. Let the words settle. Because this moment of recognition is sacred. It's where you stop seeking and start seeing. It's where your shadow, your pain, your light, your love all finally meet. There's something almost holy about the collapse the moment everything you thought you were supposed to be begins to dissolve. It's disorienting, yes. You lose people, you lose roles, you lose the safety of certainty. But what if that loss isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? Jung believed that the breakdown is the beginning of breakthrough, that the psyche will dismantle what no longer serves your growth, even if it breaks your heart to let go. You might feel like you're losing control, but maybe you're just losing illusion. Because the soul, at its core, doesn't want control. It wants connection. It doesn't crave perfection. It craves truth. There's a quiet power in surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that gives into life, to flow, to what's real. The kind that finally whispers, I don't need to know how this ends. I just need to trust that I'm being led. And that's the wisdom Jung tried to give the modern world, the wisdom we banned, because it asked too much of our egos. It asked us to stop performing enlightenment and start living authenticity. It asked us to stop labeling emotions as good or bad and start feeling them fully. It asked us to descend before we rise, to let the pain teach us what peace really means. That's not a popular message in a world that worships instant healing and quick fixes. But your soul doesn't move at the speed of Wi-Fi. It moves at the speed of honesty. And honesty takes time. Maybe that's why you felt so restless, because your soul has been waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. Every symptom of your pain, the anxiety, the numbness, the loneliness, is not proof that you're broken. It's your psyche trying to get your attention. It's saying, please listen. I have something to show you. And when you finally do, when you stop trying to fix yourself and start listening, something miraculous happens. You stop being at war with life. You stop chasing love and start becoming it. You stop running from your wounds and start realizing they were your teachers all along. Because every time you meet your pain with presence, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you hold your fear with compassion, you dissolve a wall inside you. That's how the shadow becomes light, not by force, but by tenderness. So if you're here, listening, feeling that quiet ache in your chest, maybe it's because some part of you already knows this. Your darkness is not the opposite of your light. It is the womb of it. And from that womb, from the silence of surrender, something new is being born. Not the version of you who has it all figured out, but the one who can finally breathe. The one who no longer needs to pretend. The one who has made peace with being human. Take another breath. Let it be slow. Let it be enough. Because right now, in this exact moment, you are becoming who you were always meant to be. There comes a moment, somewhere along this inward path, when the question changes. It's no longer, how do I fix myself? But how do I love myself, even here? Jung said that the greatest tragedy is to live the unlived life, to die still wearing the mask, never touching the rawness of your own being. And maybe that's what the modern soul aches for, not another self-help tip, not another motivational quote, but permission. Permission to feel, to stop pretending, to live something real again. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to become better, kinder, calmer, more productive, more spiritual, but deep down, you're tired. Because you don't need to become anything you need to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That remembering can hurt. Because to love yourself honestly means seeing everything. The moments you betrayed your truth to be loved. The times you blamed others for wounds you never tended. The patterns you swore you'd never repeat, but did anyway. And yet when you face those truths without judgment, something shifts. The heart softens. The shame begins to loosen. You realize that healing isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of compassion. Jung once said that the shoe that fits one person pinches another, meaning there is no single path, no perfect formula. What heals one may hurt another. So stop comparing your timeline to anyone else's. Your soul moves in its own rhythm. Sometimes it blooms in silence, sometimes it breaks to grow, sometimes it just rests. And all of that is holy. You begin to understand that the same force that shattered you is the one rebuilding you. That the same darkness that once terrified you is now your teacher. That the very thing you thought disqualified you from love is the thing that makes you human. And as you see yourself more clearly, you start to see others differently too. You stop needing to fix them. You start to listen. You realize that everyone is carrying invisible stories, shadows of their own. And suddenly, compassion isn't something you try to feel. It becomes who you are. This is the beauty of the shadow work Jung spoke of, not to become pure, but to become whole, to hold your contradictions without shame, to laugh while still grieving, to forgive without forgetting, to love without losing yourself. That's what the modern soul has forgotten. That light and dark were never meant to fight each other. They were meant to dance. So maybe healing isn't about becoming perfect light, but about learning to hold both the ache and the awe, the wound and the wonder. And when you can do that, when you can sit in the middle of your contradictions and still whisper, "I'm okay here," something opens. You stop running. You stop seeking. You just are. That's the moment the soul exhales. And perhaps that's all Jung ever wanted, for us not to escape our humanity, but to remember its sacredness. There is a sacred stillness that follows awakening, not the loud kind of peace people post about online, but the quiet kind that settles into your bones. It doesn't mean life stops hurting. It means you stop resisting the hurt. You stop making pain your enemy. You begin to see that even heartbreak has its own rhythm, its own intelligence, its own purpose. Jung said that life calls not for perfection, but for wholeness. And wholeness, dear one, includes the mess. The heartbreak, the confusion, the loneliness, the mistakes. They're not signs that you've failed. They're signs that you're alive. They're the fingerprints of your becoming. You see, the modern world teaches us to chase happiness, but happiness is fragile. It shatters when life shifts. What your soul truly wants is meaning. And meaning doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from transforming it, from realizing that your suffering can serve something greater if you let it. There is wisdom inside your wounds that no book can teach you. Every scar carries a story not just of what hurt you, but of what survived. And when you start to honor those scars instead of hiding them, you realize something beautiful. Your pain didn't ruin you. It refined you. It carved out the space where empathy now lives. It taught you to see beyond surfaces, to hear what isn't said, to touch what others avoid. That's what Jung meant by the process of becoming conscious. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's a rebirth of the soul through the language of experience. It's remembering that even your darkness is divine. So what do you do now in this place of knowing? You live, but differently. You speak softer, not from fear, but from presence. You choose love, but not at the cost of yourself. You rest, not out of laziness, but out of reverence for the sacred rhythm of your own becoming. You no longer need every answer. You stop chasing certainty. You start trusting the unknown because you've walked through enough nights to know that light always returns. And when it does, it's gentler, quieter. It doesn't blind you. It embraces you. You no longer search for God in the sky. You find God in the pause before your next breath, in the silence after forgiveness, in the softness that comes when you finally stop fighting life and start dancing with it. This is the essence of Jung's banned wisdom, that the path to healing isn't up or forward. It's down and inward, into the dark soil where your soul's roots grow, into the shadow where your light is hiding, into the raw truth of being human imperfect, alive, divine. So if you're listening now and you feel that pull, that quiet stirring in your chest, know that it's yourself, calling you home. Not to who you were, not to who you think you should be, but to who you've always been beneath it all. And when you finally arrive there, when you touch that stillness, when you breathe and whisper, "I'm here," that's when you'll understand what Jung really meant by healing the modern soul. It's not about escaping the world. It's about seeing it through new eyes, through a heart that has been broken and still chooses to love. If these words have found you at the right moment, let them stay, let them echo. And if they touch something real in you, maybe share them not out of obligation, but out of love. Someone out there might need the reminder that they too are still becoming. And if you haven't yet, stay close, subscribe, breathe with us, keep walking this path. There's more to remember, more to unfold, more to come home to. Because this beautiful, messy, tender moment is not the end. It's the beginning of wholeness.